modern webinar platforms, what features do audience like to engage with? We've got 90 seconds and go.
Okay, so I like the question. What features do audiences like to engage with? Because that's a lot different oftentimes than what features do marketers like to put on their webinars, right?
Sure.
So we already talked about the stat that only 7% of your audience are going to submit questions. If you do a real good job and you go early and often to the web and you get the questions coming in, you might be able to grow that, but you're never going to get everyone asking you questions. So two ones that are staples that work really well are resource downloads. 40% of our audience today will download something from our resource section.
That's great.
And polls, 40% of an audience will respond to polls. So those are just tie, test, and true. And almost every platform out there is going to allow you to offer a handout, offer a resource, or do a poll. Now, social's interesting. So everyone loves social, right? It's a big thing, and they want to integrate it. But in a live format, there's not a lot of people who are going to be watching a webinar and tweeting at you at the same time, even if you're very active in social media. People may share out, which is okay, but they're not really engaging with you through that.
Right.
So back to what I was talking about before, providing them some additional choice, like being able to connect directly with the speaker or go to some sort of like your community or something through the webinar are things that will generally drive more interactivity than just the standard features and functionality you see all the time on a webinar.
So you want to have lots of touch points.
Yeah.
It's funny because oftentimes when I'm, attending a webinar myself and trying to learn, I'll think of questions after the fact.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why the LinkedIn connection has worked really well, especially for those webinars that we've hosted in the past, because I can't tell you how many times someone will connect with me and then a week or two later they'll come back and say, hey, I was thinking about this. What do you think? Do you have any advice or ideas or anything to share? And it really does kickstart a relationship. It's not instant. It's not, it's trackable in a sense, but it's not part of a data file that's been exported. But it happens, and it leads to very, good opportunities down the road often.
Yeah, and we didn't talk about it yet, but the other key is usually the people on this desk are in senior leadership positions, right? You're the CMO of Demand Metric. I run the streaming network. When we're engaging with prospects, we're probably not the ones who are going to end up being their account manager or maybe the person who deals with them day to day.
Right.
But me having that connection with them long term helps us close opportunities, helps us if something should go wrong, heaven forbid, helps us have other sort of connections with the human beings at the companies, which just makes us more sticky and more integrated with them.
Right. So you mentioned content downloads.
Yeah.
You mentioned polls.
Yeah.
So what about feedback surveys? This is an interesting one because I've been mailed them before. I never take them.
Yeah.
Do people actually take these feedback surveys?
No, they don't.
Okay.
Well, I shouldn't say they don't. I mean, clearly you get some. You usually get the guy or gal who's really upset that something didn't work for them.
Okay.
They'll fill it out. And then you'll get the person who's already called you to talk to you because they are so ecstatic about the content and everything, or maybe they're someone who's just been a long-term supporter of you. It's usually the people on both ends of the spectrum that follow up, which is why the feedback survey on a webinar, I'm not a big fan of it in general, but I have tried so many things in an attempt to make them work. I've had customers who have paused their webinars before Q&A, played music, and tried to force people to take it.
That's horrible.
I did one where we had we promised a moment of zen like Jon Stewart after we got through our content, and we put up a survey while we prepared to do the moment of zen, as if they had to stick around to hear this great last point. I've seen T-shirts given away, but in the end, the numbers still remain very, very low. So if certain organizations, are measuring the speaker because they're bringing in guest speakers, maybe paying them, especially when you're doing educational content. If you want to get a speaker feedback or the feedback on the speaker, I would recommend that at the end when your slides are done, or towards the end when you're winding down and like when you're going ahead and you're doing the close for this webinar, is use the poll function, which generally takes over the slide area or is predominant and is easy for people to click on and start asking questions. You won't get holistic survey responses that way, where people will maybe answer all 5, but you'll get a lot more data on your audience.
Yeah. That's what we're after.
Yeah, but just going back, I'm not a huge fan of them.
Okay.
I don't know that a webinar perception survey gives you a ton of really usable information that you can't get by measuring just the engagement overall in the webinar.
Well, thanks for that, Matt.
Okay.